So today we're going to do the handover video on the Tribute 620. We're going to start on the outside and then we're going to move on to the inside. So firstly, coming over to the passenger side, you can see that you've got your fill up point, and in here goes your diesel. Opening up the passenger door, you'll notice that you've got your bonnet release catch. Just pull that to of course release the bonnet. Now, there's not many things that you need to know underneath the bonnet. The main things that you need to know is if you ever jump starting the vehicle. So I'll just lift the bonnet up now and show you where that is done from. And with the bonnet open, you can see that you've got your negative terminal, which goes onto this nipple here. And then your positive terminal is just located underneath this cap here. As you can see, there's a little plus sign on there. And just connect your positive onto there. They're the main things that you need to know, as I mentioned, but just to point out a couple more things. You can see that you've got your engine oil here along with your dipstick below that. Your brake disc fluid is then up from there. Next to that is your engine coolant. You've then got your power steering fluid, and finally in the corner you've got your washer fluid, which is in there. Moving around the vehicle, on this side you'll notice you've got a Truma vent. All you need to do is simply remove this by simply pulling up and away on the little tab at the bottom, and that will release the vent. This is in essence the chimney. It does get very hot, so just bear that in mind. You don't want to hang anything on there. And what you need to make sure is when you're travelling, this vent is always on at all times, like so. So no road debris or rain or anything or mud gets kicked up into there. But then when you're stationary and you are using the Truma heating system on board the vehicle, so that's for your water heating, you need to always ensure that this cap is off. And as I say, when travelling, it goes on. Now, if for example you leave this cap on and try to turn your heater on to heat the water on the inside of the vehicle, it will fail. If you do that 3 times, you'll then need to reset the entire system. Now, I'll show you how to obviously operate the heating system on the inside, but please do get into the habit of removing that when on site and stationary and travelling with that on, because you don't want to gas the system out. First up, here at the bottom you can see we've got your first drain down point of the vehicle. This is your grey pipe and this is for your wastewater tank. You've got 3 main drain down points in the vehicle. You've got your wastewater tank, which you can see is external to the vehicle. You've got your freshwater tank, which is again external to the vehicle at the rear, which we'll go to in a minute. And then the final drain down point is your boiler drain down point, located on the inside of the vehicle. So with your drain down point, what you need to do is when you're on site, you'll have a big grid that you can drive over. Once you're lined up with that grid, all you need to do is turn this valve, and as you can see, the wastewater simply spills out. Once you've emptied the majority of the water in your grid on site, you can leave all your drain down points open, because as you're travelling home, that vibration of the road is going to ensure that all that final water is out of the system. Now, as I mentioned, this can be done for the wastewater, freshwater and the boiler drain down point. So do it all for the drain down points. You need to always ensure that when the vehicle is not in use, the vehicle is completely drained down. Now, on a day like today, it's a nice day, obviously in the height of summer. It doesn't really matter if you leave water in the vehicle because it's not going to freeze. However, what I personally recommend is just get into the habit of draining each freshwater, wastewater and boiler drain down point completely, to ensure there's no water in the system, because it gets you into the habit of having them drained down. Because come winter, if you do forget about obviously draining them down because you've not been in the swing of things, you'll ultimately get frozen water in the system, which can then lead to cracks in the pipes, and is obviously a load of mess. So just bear that in mind. Moving on from the wastewater tank, you can see that you've got your hookup points here, and this is for your 230 volt electric. This allows you to have 230 volt mains electric going into the vehicle, and will supply the fridge and various appliances in the vehicle with power. Moving on, you've then got your Lpg locker, so this is where your gas bottles are located. I'll open that up for you now. And with this open, you can see you've got space for 2 gas bottles in here, and your regulator is all fit in the vehicle, ready for use. You will need a pigtail to connect the regulator to the gas bottle, of course, and then simply turn the gas bottle on to allow the gas to go through the van, and can therefore be used. Please ensure that when travelling, gas is turned off at the bottle. You never want to travel with gas on at the bottle, due to safety. If you are involved in a crash, obviously it's highly flammable, so just bear that in mind. So now moving on from the gas locker into the cassette toilet. You can see that I've just opened the locker and it gains you access to your cassette. To remove this, all you need to do is push up on the blue tab and slide out like so. Now before doing that, you need to always make sure that the blade on the toilet is closed. If the blade is open, what will happen is you'll go to remove this, it will get jammed, and if you do force it, it'll ultimately break the system. So please ensure that the blade is closed at all times. I'll show you how to do that when on the inside of the vehicle. Now to empty this, what I'll do is I'll pull it out and stick it on the floor, show you the points that you need to know. Right, so as you can see, the cassette is out. You've got a funnel at the top here. So to empty, you need to twist that funnel out, remove the blue cap, and then using the blue button on the back, click that. That will release an internal vacuum in the system and will allow you to empty all of the contents out of the funnel in one steady flow. Once you've done that, you can put a bit of water in here just to obviously swill the system out. If you have got blue fluid as well, just stick it straight in the top of this cap, which will allow you to purify and clean the system. You will also notice on the cassette you've got this blue lever here which turns. This is what makes contact with the blade and allows it to open and close the cassette. This should always remain in this position. There should be no need for you to turn that, because if that is off slightly, it won't allow you to push the cassette in correctly. When the cassette has been emptied and you're ready to move on, obviously simply line the cassette up and push that until you hear that click. That blue tab that will then rest in place. Directly underneath the cassette, you've got your next drain down point, which is your freshwater drain down point. You can tell because this is obviously a blue valve. Again, similar to the wastewater, all you need to do is simply turn this and this will empty the freshwater tank completely. As I mentioned, when you are travelling, you can of course, once you've got rid of the majority of the water, drain the entire tank down and leave it open. Moving to the back, you can see you've got your bike rack here on the back, along with your reversing camera, which is right up at the top there underneath the brake light. And coming round to this side of the vehicle, you'll notice that you've got a point here to access your freshwater tank. This is in essence how you fill up your fresh water. All you need to do, you need a key to obviously remove this. You can then remove this, and then using a food grade hose pipe, that will go in and you can fill the system with fresh water. I recommend using a food grade hose pipe as it stops any bacteria from building up in the hose pipe, and as I say, it'll allow you to fill it. When it's overflowing, you know it's full, and then you're good to go. You're good to go putting the cap back on to seal the system. Your habitation door is next. We'll go in there just in a second. You can see that you've got your fridge vents on this side of the vehicle. Now bear in mind, it is a hot day obviously today, and with these hot days you need to bear in mind that your fridge isn't going to perform as efficiently. To help the fridge perform a little bit more efficiently, like I've done here, I've turned the vehicle into the shade. This will allow the fridge to pull air through and allow it to cool a lot faster. If the sun is blaring down on this side of the vehicle, obviously it's going to make it harder for the fridge to do its job, so just bear that in mind. You can get fridge vents for these as well, or fridge covers rather, when storing the vehicle. You've got a door light as well up at the top there, which will help you find the van when the vehicle is being used at night. And then you can see you've also got a locker at the front here, just behind where we started. And in here is a bit of storage, really nice bit of storage actually. You've got your point for your wind out awning, which is located on the top here. We've put your carpets in the bottom here, and also, as you can see, under this plastic panel is where your battery is located for your leisure side of things. So your leisure battery is all contained in there. Now, as I mentioned, there is an awning fitted to this vehicle, so before I move on to the inside, this is a Fiamma awning. If it is a windy day, you can see the wind's picking up here. Take the awning back in. You don't want this awning to be out when the wind is picking up, because as you can imagine, it is a big sail at the end of the day, so just bear that in mind. Okie dokie, so moving on to the inside of the vehicle. Just above the habitation door, you can see you've got your control panel. On your control panel, you can see you've got your power on button, and you can see that has just activated your lights as well. Next to that, you've then got your leisure battery level. Click that, and it shows you. You hold that, can show you what level we're at. We're not plugged in currently, hence why it's just reading above amber. Your vehicle battery level is then next, and you can see the reading on that as well. Do bear in mind that depending on which you select will depend on what your lights are being drained off. So always make sure after checking your vehicle battery level, you click it back onto leisure battery, because you don't want your lights and everything running off your vehicle battery, so just bear that in mind. Underneath as well, you've got your pump button. That little tap indicates the pump. Of course, you need to make sure that there is water in the vehicle. Once you've done that, you can go to your taps, including your shower, turn them on and turn them to hot. That'll pull hot, water from the fresh water tank into the boiler and out of the tap. When it's running steadily, you prime your system for your hot water. Once you've done that, flick it over to cold and do the exact same. And then when it's running steadily, you've primed your system for your cold water. Once you've done that, you can leave your pump on, because in essence your system is primed, and each of your taps have a micro switch which will activate and deactivate the pump whenever you should need it. The only time you need to always make sure that the pump is turned off is if you've got no water in the vehicle. Now, coming back over to my explanation about running it through the hot before the cold, the reason I tell you to do that is you've got a boiler on here, which is a Truma boiler, which holds approximately 10 litres of fresh water. With that in mind, it's going to take a while, obviously, for that water to heat up. So if this is the first thing you do when you're on site after filling up, turn it on, turn it to hot, and pulling water through that 10 litre boiler point and out of the tap, when you go to turn your heating on, which will be the next thing you do for your hot water, by the time you've done everything in the vehicle, your water should be up to temperature and ready to use. Because you've got to bear in mind, it is going to take at least 30 to 40 minutes to get that water up to temperature. So if it's the first thing you do when you're in the vehicle, by the time you need it, it should be nice and warm for you. Now, coming back up to the control panel, next to the pump, click that. You can see, shows our fresh water point with nothing in at the moment, because it's all in the wastewater tank, as you've seen, so don't worry about that. Next to that, you've also got a light, which is for outside, the outside awning light, and then in here you've obviously got your cupboards for plenty of storage in the kitchen area. In the kitchen area you've also got obviously a hob with gas rings, along with an oven and grill, and you've got your sink with plenty of storage below. Now, underneath the oven, you can see that you've got your pump, which is located there, along with the main socket. And you'll also notice you've got some red valves in the corner there. You may have some more around the vehicle. They are called what's known as isolation valves, and they isolate certain areas of the vehicle. You don't need to mess around with them. They're purely for the technicians when working on the vehicle. Everything you need to know will be on the panel, and everything that I discussed today, so don't worry about that. Now, coming straight on, you can see that you've got your bathroom area. Your cassette toilet is straight on. Now, we've discussed obviously about priming your shower and your taps and everything, and as we mentioned outside, we've briefly mentioned about opening and closing the blade for the toilet. So when the toilet is in use, you need to ensure that the blade is open. Push that away from you, and that will open the cassette. That will allow all the waste to drop into the cassette, and once you've done that, click the blue button on the top there, which will activate the flush, and that will flush the entire system. Once you've done that, push that away from you to close the system. Now, you close the cassette for two reasons. The main reason being is it stops odours from escaping, but it also will get you into the habit of having that closed, so when you come to remove the cassette, you don't run into the issue as discussed earlier. Now coming back up to here, as I mentioned, that blue button does activate your flush. Do bear in mind that you do need your pump on that for that to operate. So just make sure you obviously have that running. So moving away from the bathroom area, you can see that your heater is just located here. The heater is dead simple. So you've got your gas on this side. So if you're wanting to run the system off gas, dead easy. All you need to do, turn it like that. You can hear it clicking. Push it in and then allow that to ignite. Obviously I've no gas on at the moment, so it's not going to work, but then that will allow you to run this heater off gas. To allow the fan to obviously work, you've then got this here. So you've got the first dial here, which is indicating off. You've then got the ability to switch it to manual or auto. Manual will allow you to adjust the fan speed using this dial here. You may be able to hear the fan just working and circulating the air, and then the automatic will basically automatically assign whichever fan speed it thinks it requires, basically. But 98 times out of 10 you will have it on the manual feature, an option there. This is just a recirculation of air, and it's more intense. You can actually hear that fan a lot more on the video now, and as I say, that is just more of an intense fan, depending on obviously what the situation is like. Now, as I mentioned, that's if you're wanting to run it off gas. If you're wanting to run it off the 230 volt electric, you can see that this is how you do it. So at the moment you've got the off switch, which is here. This is the O, so it indicates that it's off. Using this dial you can then flick up and down. If you flick up, it shows you that you can run the heating system off the 2 kilowatt electric. If you flick it down, you can run it off 0.5 kilowatt electric, and then flick it all the way down to 1 kilowatt electric. So again, depending on, of course, how much you require, or how much intensity. 9 times out of 10, you're going to obviously have it on 2 kilowatt electric. Now, please bear in mind, this is just for obviously the heating on the vehicle's temperature. It's not for the water temperature, so please make sure that you remember that this is just for the vehicle's heating. You've also got this dial as well, which will again allow you to change the intensity and in essence determine what temperature you're after. Above the heater area, you can see that you've got a really good bit of storage here for hanging space. You've also got an access to the heater should you need to. That's of course really just for the technicians. You'll also notice that at the back here is where your aerial is located. At the moment you've got a green light on, which indicates that the aerial's on. You have got a little button on there where you can turn it on and off, but I just keep it on, as that will turn off automatically when you turn off the system, or the 12 volt system on the top. Now at the moment there's no need for us to extend the aerial, because you can see that you've got a green light which indicates that you're going to get good signal. If you do want to better your signal, all you need to do is unscrew that cap, or this little thing here, then push the aerial up, and that will allow you to maximise the range. You can then of course use this this arm to tilt the head of the aerial again to maximise and improve the range and signal. Opposite the heater, you have got a bit more storage on this side. That's where your table's located, freestanding table that is. Microwaves up at the top. Please bear in mind that this will only work off 230 volt electric. And below is where your fridge is. So this is a Dometic fridge, and it's a 3-way system. So it's in essence a smart system. There's 3 ways to power it. So you can see at the top you've got your on button here. Next to that you've got a little plug icon, you've then got a little flame icon, and then a battery icon. So when you're on site and you're hooked up to mains, you'll run the fridge off this little plug icon. This allows you to run it off 230 volt electric, which will be the majority of the time. If you are wild camping, you can run it off gas, and this little flame symbol indicates the gas, which when you're wild camping you will run it off this, and then your battery indicates your leisure battery. So this will allow you to run the fridge off your leisure battery for when you're travelling. Now a lot of people think that they can run the fridge off 12 volt leisure battery when wild camping. That is not the case. You always need to make sure that when you're stationary and you're wild camping, you run it off your gas. as you'll simply get an error code and it will not allow you to run it off 12 volts if you are stationary. The reason for that is this fridge takes so much power. What could end up happening is it'll end up burning out your 12 volt leisure battery and leaving you with no power. The only reason you're allowed to use this when travelling is because this vehicle has got a built-in alternator. It will send power to the leisure battery as the vehicle battery is running through the alternator and to the fridge, which will allow you to obviously power the fridge when travelling. Opposite that, you've then got your temperature, which you can then change in the fridge, and you've got a little reset button here, which is on the end should you need to reset it. Your fridge is below and your freezer is just up at the top. Do bear in mind, cooled things need to go in the fridge to maintain the temperature, and frozen things need to go in the freezer, as it does a better job at maintaining the temperature and not necessarily getting it down to temperature. So just bear that in mind. And moving into the lounge area now, you can see you've got a really nice big lounge in this vehicle with storage all along the top as well. Before I talk you through the lounge setup, it's worth noting that in the far left cupboard, or far right, depending on how you're looking at it, just on the driver's side, you have got your sergeant box. In here, this is where your fuses are located and your RCD breaker. As you can see, if the vehicle ever trips, you need to come to this point. You have got a little test button, so if the vehicle trips, because you're not getting any power to the vehicle, or you can't get your lights on, for example, you know that you're getting power to the van, so there's therefore a fault with your vehicle and not the campsite. But obviously, if you click that test button and nothing trips, you're clearly not getting any power to the vehicle, so it's therefore a fault with the site. So that's a nice little test you can do. But yeah, as I say, RCD breakers there, fuses are located there. You have got the charger here, which is on. You never need to turn that off. You can obviously put the system in shutdown by doing that. Don't do that. You should leave that as it is. It's only really there for if your vehicle isn't being used for months and months on end. Now, coming to the lounge space, you've got two travelling seats, as you can see. Underneath here, you've got some storage. Got a little bit of storage underneath here, but on this side is where your boiler's located. Now, I'll talk you through the boiler last of all. But this area does actually, in fact, turn into a bed. Now, to first mention, you have got a little stand here. How this works is fold it out like so. This pops up, and this then connects onto the edge of the bed. As you can see, I've then connected that on to the side of the seat, and this is in fact a little coffee table. It's almost like a little side table should you want a cup of tea or anything like that. It's like a little coffee table for you. So that's what that is. So don't confuse that for being part of the bed, although it looks like it. That is just simply a coffee table. Now, making up this area into a bed, you can see that you've got this slide out piece here, which lines up nicely here. And as you can see, by removing this cushion, you've got this piece of wood here. Now what you need to do is this piece of wood sits in the back here, using these slats here, which typically you'd probably have underneath this seat anyway. What you need to do is this will line up and slot into the rail here. I'll just pause the video so I can do that now. As you can see, that piece is now slotted in nicely. Using the edge of this then supports the edge of the piece here. And then, using these infill cushions, which were originally the base of the seat, they slot into here, like so. Just pull this one down. And then using the backrests, you can see they just simply fall into place. That one can, of course, be removed. And then you have your double bed, which is simply made up here. What I do recommend is using a mattress topper just to level out the surface. But you can see you've got your double bed there, and you could of course use this one as a single as well. And just like that, we're back to the lounge setup. Now, you may have noticed underneath here there was two buttons. This is, as I mentioned, where the boiler is located. The boiler is the only thing that we need to speak about on the vehicle, which is remaining. So all you need to do to access that is simply remove this cushion like so. I'll then remove this piece here, and this will gain you access to the boiler. Now it's worth mentioning as well, you can see that this panel pulls across from this area here to create the L-shaped lounge. Of course, if you are travelling with children here, they will need somewhere for their legs to sit. So for travelling, you need to remove this section and then simply pull back like so and allow that to clip into place. Now, you can see that your boiler is located behind this system, these controls here, and these controls control your water temperature and water heating. So you have two options. You've got an option of running the water system off gas on the electric, and the option of running it off electric. So running it off gas, you've got the option of 50 degrees or 70 degrees. Now in the middle option you can see that 0 again, that indicates off. All you need to do is simply flick this up or flick it down depending on the temperature. Now 9 times out of 10 you're going to run it on 70 degrees if you're washing up, but if you're having a shower you may want to run it off 50 degrees. So that's for your gas. Now if you're on site and you're hooked up, you can run it off, of course, your electric. You've got 2 kilowatt electric or 1 kilowatt electric. 2 kilowatt electric is obviously down, 1 kilowatt electric is obviously up. In the middle again is off. 2 kilowatt electric is the equivalent to about 70 degrees and 1 kilowatt electric is about 50 degrees. What I recommend is when on site, I'd flick it onto gas first just to get the water up to temperature quickest, and then flick it over to electric, mainly to maintain that water temperature. Now, like I mentioned, you need to always ensure that on the outside that cover is removed from that vent to ensure that you're of course not you're not gassing out the system. Now finally you can see where your boiler is located. So obviously if you need to access it on anything on the boiler, just remove this cushion and your boiler is accessible. Now the only thing that you really need to know underneath here is your final drain down point, which is your boiler drain down point, of course. That drain down point is this yellow valve here. Flick that up to release the water. You can probably hear that draining out the vehicle now. I'll leave that open. Now if you want to close the system, simply flick that down like so. But to drain it, leave it up. Obviously in winter, you always need to make sure that that's drained down whenever you are not using the vehicle. Before we end today's video, you'll also notice on all your windows you've got blackout blinds and fly screens as well, which are built into them. And you can of course put all your windows on venting should you want to, like so. That will just allow air to circulate through. Please bear in mind if you are travelling, they all need to of course be closed. A little bit like your aerial as well, you need to make sure that is of course down in position. Finally, but not least, you've then got your bed up at the top. To access this, you need to pull this like so. Your ladder is just located underneath, and then you can fold the mattress out to make that into a big double bed. If you then want to gain access into the front, simply push that back and you can see it leaves this area nice and open. So that concludes the handover video on the Tribute T620. I hope you enjoyed.